Here we go, guys. What have I been up to? Um, yeah, getting into this Octolapse. Um, so I don't know if I discussed it already, but yeah, I think I did cover a little bit about it. You can add it into Octoprint, plus this little cool printer display add-in, and it shows you also the layer height, where you are, what you've done, etc. So a couple of add-ins, plus I upgraded to my memory too on the and did a brand new build of Octoprint onto the memory card to get 7 odd gig on there, say gig card. I've been learning how to create airfoils in Fusion 360, so early days, um, and I base this on where did I go and find this? I managed to, you go to Airfoils Tools, you get yourself whatever you want. This is similar to a NACA, NACA aerofoil. I think it's an RG15 section, so not dissimilar. It's MH42.IL. And what you can do is you can select the format data file, take all the data out, and you can stick it into a Notepad++, I'd recommend, rather than Notepad, and then save that as a DAT file. Notepad tends to want to save text files, so it's important that you take all the data that's up in this minus this top line, just take everything out that's in here, all its effective coordinates, which you can use to produce an aerofoil inside of Fusion 360. And this is a good aerofoil for general aerobatics and general gliding. It's kind of a in the middle. I call it a kind of, you know, low Reynolds number airfoil, but it's good for overall, generic flying of all types of models. There's a couple of YouTube channels up there. This guy's pretty good. I'm just going on to his second one now. I'm not very good at Fusion 360, but I'm getting better at it. So yeah, Lars Christensen is really good. So he's kind of like an Autodesk guy, but now he's moving on to show you how to create the ribs within a Fusion 360 aerofoil. Just some live streaming. It's pretty good. So you can pick up your aerofoil um, from up here. Select the appropriate aerofoil you want. There's lots of RC modeling groups that sort of recommending what type of aerofoil. But they seem to be plumbing for one which is not dissimilar to an RG15. And I thought, well, I'll go and have a look at the MH42 for similar airfoils. So I've gone for that one. You pull the data out. Once you've done that, you go into Fusion 360. You go to Tools, you go to Add-ins, and you click on the Fusion 360 App Store. You can get yourself a free copy of Fusion 360, providing you're not getting into commercial sector of actually building stuff, which I'm not at this stage, but at some point I probably will go and buy a license once I get into commercial side of things, but that's not going to be a few years yet. And then just type in airfoil. Well, in fact, you saw a pop up. There's an airfoil generator. But the one you want to get hold of is the airfoil DAT to spline. So it's taking that DAT file and converting that into a spline you can then extrude from. There's also an airfoil sketch from file. Okay, so you can output similar content into CSV. But this one works pretty well. So once you get yourself your add-in, you can then go up to the add-ins, scripts and add-ons, and then you can double-click on the spline one. And then you can, I've already extruded this one, but you pull in your DAT file. It'll set up the origins for you to go and pull in. You can open and close or view these origins. And then you can actually go and say OK, open up the DAT file, which then pulls it in. Just select one of these planes here within the sketch, and you basically say add-ins, scripts, select what you want to go and pull in. So it'll draw an outline for you already with the planes, and then you say okay, you pull in that file. Once you've got your DAT file in, you're then able to use that to extrude. Extrude means when you do a pull extrude, it's under the solid here. It's this extrude option here. And all extrude does is say, look, take me from this outline of this is an outline effectively of this aerofoil section, and extrude it outwards. So that's as far as I've got. Now, I am not going to teach you how to do Fusion 360, but this guy will. And he's already got a stream up there to how to do what I've just done. So have a look at it. I might start doing Fusion 360 videos or streams as of when I've got better at it and I really fully understand it. But I don't really, to be honest, fully understand it. I've got a vague understanding of it. I know you can create a sketch. I now know you can use this tool to create the outline of a sketch and then turn that sketch into what's called splines. Well, basically lines that join up, because this effectively is a curve, but it's actually really just a series of lines all joined together. And they're called splines, and then you can uniform and group those splines into a kind of shape. And then from there you can extrude from it, and then you've got yourself the rudiments of an aerofoil that you can extrude from. And then from there, the next bit I'm going to learn is how do you put ribs into this like they do on 3DLabs. So how would you then draw a series of ribs crisscross across here, and then how would you shape this to be more like a proper wing section? So that's what I plan to learn over the next few weeks. But this guy looks pretty good, so I'd recommend starting with him because he seems to be pretty good with Fusion 360. I was watching him the other day. So octolapse, here is an octolapse of the last wing section. It's similar to a time lapse, but the difference is what it does quite cleverly is you program it, you set it up, and you put in various settings, and I'll have a look at the settings in a minute for you. And it moves the head right to one side. You decide where you want the main print head to go to. It takes a snapshot. But watch what it does. Because the head's moved to one side and it takes a snapshot, it forms this lovely kind of structure that just builds up out of nowhere. I need to readjust the camera position, but I quite like that. And I've used it before, but I didn't have too much success with it. But it just sort of grows the object out of the bed. So I need to lift that camera up a bit, or maybe put it further back, maybe make a proper tripod for it. But I just thought I'd show you it. The settings for it, once you've installed it, in fact, I really need to rename this. Oops, excuse me. Need to rename this for the Ender. So we'll go for Ender. I've just taken the Anycubic Ender 3D Pro. Let's give it its full name, Creality. Ender 3D Pro, capital Pro. Yeah, Octo Lapse profile for the Ender. Oops, for the Ender Pro 3D. Select your slicer type. Mine's Cura. There are a couple of others it shows there, or other. And this is where you would go and pull these settings. So your material, your speed, your travel. You go and pull these out of Cura. So you go into Cura. I haven't got it loaded at the moment. But you pull these out of Cura. And so I know my retraction is 6 millimeters, my retraction speed is 50, my retraction prime speed is 40. The print speed 50, infill speed 50, outer wall speed 40, yada yada yada. You pull all of these by going through the Cura and searching for them. Just type in the search and you Z-hop all of this, you set, and then the only thing I had to go and set that was different was I think I set the XYZ axis to absolute rather than the default, which I think is explicit or require explicit. Let's have a look. Oh, why didn't that rename that? Okay, keeps flicking around, doesn't it? That's weird. Oh, maybe I didn't hit save anyway. So let's try that again. Creality, Ender. Yeah, Creality, Ender, 3D Pro. Yeah, Octo Lapse. It's definitely got a problem where it keeps hopping around. I don't know why it's doing that. Bit annoying. Creality, Ender, Pro. Something weird going on there. I'm not sure what. Could have been actually Cura loading in the background. Get it right way around. 3D Pro. Octo Lapse Profile. Okay, save that. Right, come back to Octolapse. Looking a bit better. Cogwheel. So you pull all these settings, get them out of Cura. It's fairly straightforward. You can pull them from here. All you have to do is say, oh, I need to know the outer wall speed, right? Oh, I think it's speed, isn't it? Yeah. So just type in outer. And then you will find under speed, the outer wall speed, 40. Yeah. So just use that search facility and you will find all these settings. And pretty much I've found pretty much all of them. Number of slower layers. Yeah, I did find that. I think I just typed in num. Oh, sorry. NUMB. And again, it'll be under the speed section. So number of slower layers is 2. Anyway, I think you probably can figure out the rest. You find out your Z hop height. I'm pretty certain the only thing I had to do was default to absolute for the XYZ axis, otherwise it wasn't working properly. Didn't change anything else. That was it. Once I'd done that, I then enabled trigger state, extruder state, position changes, just so it shows them up down below in the dashboard. There is a logging facility as well, which may be useful if you wanted full diagnostic or test mode or whatever. Originally, I did use this diagnostic. However, because I learnt it a little bit more the first time I used it, I didn't have to kind of learn. I've kind of remembered most of it from a year or so ago. All right. This then would take you to Control Aware or Octolapse. This is taking to actually where the webcam is. You can choose your webcam. You can switch this on and off if you so wish. You can set the location of where you want the head to move to. So the head in this case will move to the front left when I'm facing the front of the printer and then take a snapshot, but it'll move the bed all the way to the back nearer to the camera. So that's where I've got it, because my camera's at the back. You might do the inverse of that if your camera was at the front, but my camera's sitting, behind the printer at the back. Or you might move the extruder at the center right. I'm more likely to move mine to the center left, but then the bed wouldn't come back all the way. So I'm probably going to leave it where it is for the time being. But there's lots of options you can play with here. Other people have posted videos on it, but it's pretty straightforward. I've left snapshot as layer, changed compatibility, rendering, I've left the default. Haven't really changed anything else really, apart from making sure that these were set. It will come up and say some of your speed settings are non-unique. Show the non-unique. All right, wouldn't worry too much about that. The main thing is they have to mirror what you're using in your slicer. That's the critical thing. Otherwise, it'll try to move the printed head, the hot end away, and then it'll need to move it back exactly where it left off. And that's important because you don't want to bump into your print in the wrong place. So that's why it needs a lot of these settings, so it can simply move it out, park it effectively, take the snapshot and come back. And you only lose about a second. It's about half a second, maybe a little bit more to drive away and half a second or so to drive back. So it do lose a bit of speed because effectively per layer change, it is making a snapshot, and that's about, let's say, a second per snapshot, maybe a little bit more of what you're going to lose. But if there's only, well, how many layers are there in that one? 691 layers. Well, that's 691 approximate seconds, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, so there is definitely a wastage of time, but you end up producing these lovely, the way it just grows the object out of the print bed. So the last thing I'm going to do then for today is ready. I'm not going to start printing, but I'm going to get ready the more complex of all of them, the wing sections. I'm going to get this part, which is pretty tricky in Cura. And the reason it's tricky is because, let me just get this into the right position, it has these complex curves at the bottom. So you get it into position, just spin it around there. Let's just see if I can zoom in here. These curves here don't get filled in properly. That's just Cura because obviously I've changed the I need to put a new code into this, so I'm going to remove that for the time being. I'll add it back in later. Just stop seeing that error coming up. So I'm going to leave the slicing tolerances middle, but I'm going to set the use adaptive layers. I'm going to switch that on. Brim's going to stay the same. Temperatures, feeds, everything else is the same. Top layers 2, bottom layers 8. And I'm going to go and slice that now. Now the adaptive layers, what they'll do is they'll look at this curve, this complex curves or series of curves, and it basically will adjust that layer height according to what it needs to smooth that curve out, so you don't get any gaps. It sort of helps smooth out, and it's because it's smoothing out the layers, and it creates thinner layers when it needs them. So the default layer we know is 0.25, right? What it will do is it will reduce that layer height down to 0.1 as and when it needs to produce a smooth curve. Really, that's what that adaptive layer is doing. Yeah. Now, if we go and preview that, just wait for that to preview it, and I'm just going to move this, zoom in for you in a minute. Let's just move that up a little bit. And I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom to about here. And then I'm going to zoom in again. And what you'll find if you get really close in is you'll find it will create a compound curve and fill it in. If you don't get this set up properly with enough top layers, 2 is usually enough, and the adaptive layers, what you end up is you'll end up with lots of gaps in between here. And that's what I found in my first print. There were lots of holes, and it really wasn't a fully structured center section to the wing anymore. And if you zoom right in, you can see where it's actually filled in various, lines and the way it's bridged these together. In fact, you can kind of see, if I didn't use this technique, you'd see a line here and a big gap. So what it's doing is it's filling in these lines, an adaptive way to make sure that this curve, this compound curve, is fully filled in. And the other thing that 8 bottom layers will do, so I roll that around a bit and go all the way down to the bottom, it will also fill in these buttress sections in here. All right, that's what that lower 8 layers is doing. Having the top layers of 2 in there, fill in this section here nicely, and of course fills, in fact, let's just switch that into, I need to switch the X-ray section on in a bit. Let's go prepare, switch on X-ray. I can see it also puts a layer in here, a top layer in here as well, look. All right. So in preview mode, coming all the way out, bringing that round to the tip, it's putting a top layer in here, a top layer in here, but it's also putting a top layer at the very top as well. There you go, all the way top here, which I'm not too worried about having a top layer in here. That, and it'll put a top layer in there, in that servo box as well. So this will, using those settings, will complete this wing correctly. Otherwise, it will not. You will end up with holes here and all sorts of issues with it not having sufficient strength. And that little buttress section underneath will also not be filled in. And so you will have, really, it just won't be a correctly sliced object that you can print out reliably in Cura. It's the only way I've discovered to get this printed out properly. All right, anyway, that's ready for tomorrow. I'll print it out. It's a big job. It's an all-day job. And I'll set it up and I'll show you it when I've finished it. And I hope you benefit from learning all the things I've learned from. All right, catch you later. Bye.